LA is shitty heaven. New York is fun hell.
Ooh,
which I think really sums up what's going on with both places. And I'd rather be in shitty heaven. So Dan, I hear we're talking about the world's greatest city today. One of my favorite places, sort of.
That's right. Rockford, Illinois. We're going to Rockford, Illinois.
Omaha, Nebraska. No.
We're talking about a city that we both have a complicated relationship with.
New York, baby.
New York.
Yep.
I remember as a kid on Nickelodeon, they would have like a grand prize of going to New York City, like for contests and stuff. And I'd say, who fucking cares? I go in once a year at Christmas time on the
train.
On the Long Island Railroad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
You know, and so I'm from Long Island. You know, you lived in New York proper.
I did. For 7 years. Just don't remember any of it.
Really?
Yeah. That's how traumatic
the
living
hustle
there
and bustle of, you know.
Yeah. No, it's great. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I
think there's two different cities, actually.
There's this incredible, famous tweet. LA.
Again, sorry. Just for younger listeners, we're talking about X.com.
We're talking X.com.
The everything app. But please continue. Yeah.
LA is shitty heaven. New York is fun hell.
Ooh,
which I think really sums up what's going on with both places. And I'd rather be in shitty heaven.
Yeah, I think so.
But a fun hell sort of describes what it's like living there, I would say.
Yeah, I always like hearing from my parents stories about what New York used to be like in the 70s and 80s, which talk about fun hell. That was a way more fun hell. Also a lot more hell. Your chances of, I think, dying were higher, but it was at least fun and there was cocaine and cool nightclubs. I know of people who went to Studio 54.
Exactly.
So all that's to say, New York has a sordid history. What's funny, I think, about today's episode is like, there's no bottom to it. It has been a fun hell the entire
exactly. Yeah, this isn't a new idea.
No. And usually we go back as far as the 70s and we say, oh, but Rudy cleaned it up in the 90s. And it's like, oh, Times Square.
Let's keep going back.
But no, keep going.
Keep going.
Right?
Keep going.
Because today's episode is really all about the Times Square vibe back then, which makes the 70s look like the Disneyland version today.
Yeah. So what time period are we working with today?
We're talking ragtime period. We're talking 1890s to 1920. Also known as the progressive era of New York, which is not sarcastic because there was a lot of reform effort going on. But it was kind of like two worlds colliding between this progressive instinct for reform, for good governance, for all this stuff, and then the fun hell guys who
It sounds like kind of a fun time.
Yeah.
Gotta say.
And it's
interesting. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. Like, if you're like, there's been a lot of good historical fiction about this time, actually. There's the book Ragtime and the movie Ragtime, of course. There's also a great book called The Alienist, which is a murder mystery set in this time, involving a lot of the characters we're going to talk about today. I think that was 1896. So it is a very evocative time for this stuff. But what I found really funny researching this episode is how the same arguments that New York gets mired in over and over and over. And we've been doing a lot of New York stuff lately, so it's just been fresh in my mind.
Right.
It fucking has happened over and over and over again since, tell me about that. Years ago.
What's the main conversation that you see circling?
Obviously, it at the time that we're recording, the time this is airing, Zohran Mamdani appears to be the front runner to be mayor of New York, right? And the efforts to stop him have not been successful so far, but they've mostly focused on the idea of crime being an issue, right? That he's going to be soft on crime and that it's coming from some of the most grotesque men imaginable. Donald Trump, Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, a lot of criminals.
Criminals, yeah.
Themselves.
Convicted felons, sex offenders, all these things, right? But as we're going to see today, with the most wonderfully corrupt NYPD official we've ever talked about.
Wow.
And
the most
feat.
corrupt in New York. Yeah.
I mean, we have the mafia hitmen guys, and I'm like, I don't know about this,
Wow.
So we're going to talk about that, but it's so amazing how it's all part of the political game. I think that there's this conception that we need to go back to the way things were, or that things were better in some time. They weren't. They were not. They were not better at some point in time.
Take your hats off, light them on fire. It wasn't better.
No.
Okay?
Okay. We're not going to be great again because it was never great.
It was never great.
It was always this wonderful swirl of corruption and power and politics. And you know what? Even the reformers.
It's a real melting pot.
Well, it is.
Of fucked up forces, It
is in every corner of the world. And so this is the story of Lieutenant Charles Becker, who holds the rare honor of being one of the few NYPD officers to ever go to the electric chair. And how he arrived there is going to be the story of today's episode.
I didn't know they let cops sit in that chair.
As a rule, they don't.
Got it.
So let's go back, as we often do, to 1896, a full 100 years before the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, just to give some...
Wow. You really pulled that out of your hat.
You do the math, okay? Disney's Hercules comes out 100 years later.
Were you just Googling what happened?
All up here.
Okay.
All up here. But 1896, Times Square, there is no M&M store here yet.
Oh.
What? Where's
Imagine a Times Square without the M&M store.
Where's the Bubba Gump Shrimp? Where's the Guy Fieri restaurant?
Where are the 20 Midwestern tourists that are just standing in the middle of the street
just blocking everything? Oh, someone's herd of cows got loose. Get them out of here, Oh, we're trying to see the lion. Hey, we're trying to see the Lion King. Where is it?
Oh my God.
It's like, all right, that's your problem. All right.
Okay, so what was Times Square like before then?
I guess I would have to say it was the biggest red light district on Earth. Okay. So
that's pretty cool.
Let me stop you there. Guy from Staten Island calling into WABC. That's what Times Square was
It really
like.
did a 180, huh?
I mean, really, seriously. What the way Times Square is now is the exception to the rule, not the other one, So it's the biggest red light district on Earth. It's called variously Satan's Circle, mostly by the Christian social reformers who are fucking obsessed with it.
What I love about that is, even though it's changed so much, I would still say it's Satan's Circle.
It is Satan's. It's
actually,
just
different version. It's a late capitalist Satan's Circle.
It's really more Satan's Circle now.
Yeah,
right?
It really is.
Alternatively called the Tenderloin. And this is from a legendary NYPD officer who is attributed to have said, when he got transferred to this area, I've dined on chuck steak enough. I'm ready for some tenderloin. Meaning, I can shake down all these brothels for a lot of money, right? And
wow, that's super fascinating. Because in San Francisco, there's an area of the tenderloin. So that I didn't know that was in various cities. There are tenderloins.
Yeah, that one, I think there's not as much fat to carve out in that tenderloin, but. The point being, this is what the area is like at that time. We have, for instance, the Metropole Hotel, where the action is going to begin a little later. That's owned by a powerfully politically connected ward healer named Big Tim Sullivan, who's going to be important later, right? There's all these connections between politics, crime, the underworld.
They're all going there to dibble dabble. Let's just say
they're having fun there. And among the people having fun there is a genuinely pioneering journalist who is sitting in a saloon on Broadway with some ladies, having a good time, not noticing the 6-foot-plus man, hefty, well-dressed in a suit, observing all of their moves. They exit the saloon, go onto the street, pass a couple of drunken men, revelers. They may or may not exchange words. And that's when the stranger approaches and announces, "You're under arrest," stiffly grabbing the women by the wrists. Who is this gentleman, you ask? That would be this man on the screen, Charles Becker.
Hmm.
Charles Becker, always reputed to be a tall, every description of him, it's like tall, handsome.
Wow. Sort of how you're described, Dan.
No, I said handsome. So if we take a look here, what do you make of him in his nice old-fashioned NYPD?
This is you
It
in
is
a
me.
nice old-fashioned NYPD suit. You know, tall, crew cut. Is that a crew cut? The haircut?
I don't think so.
What?
Crew cut's more of a military haircut.
Okay.
This is just combed to the side neatly.
We don't know what the name for this haircut is.
That's just like a haircut.
Just a haircut.
Hey,
a man with a haircut.
You walk in 1896 and say, "Give me a haircut." This is what you're going to come out with.
Okay. Right? Yeah. The old-fashioned NYPD military style
uniform
is
a double row of brass
right.
buttons. Yeah, it's quite an impressive looking thing.
It is.
This is kind of the interesting thing about policing. Like, when they first introduced uniforms about 50, 60 years earlier, there was resentment of the idea of dressing up the police because they said they're civil servants. They shouldn't be. Now let's
just put them in a trash bag.
Yeah, basically, right? And
that's really interesting.
It's certainly how the people being arrested feel about this guy. But what needs to be said is these sorts of arrests are par for the course.
Okay.
Becker is assigned to this district. This is what he does every day, arresting women, and with the understanding, and this is not woke, okay? If a woman is talking to a man in that neighborhood at that late hour, she is a prostitute and has to be arrested and can be arrested. That's probable cause to do that.
Wow.
But here's something that's a little different this time. The guy with them is Stephen Crane. Stephen Crane, if you remember your high school English class.
That would be the name.
Stephen Crane.
The guy.
Yeah, that's the guy.
That's the guy.
The guy, Stephen Crane, author of The Red Badge of Courage, a very acclaimed novel about the Civil War. I read it this year. Pretty good, He wrote it after the Civil War, had no knowledge of it, just from interviewing veterans. And he wrote a fake account of this is what it was like to be in the Civil War. It's really good.
So he's a good journalist.
He is a good journalist. And another area of interest to him was street life and
area of interest.
Yeah.
I'm just doing research.
This is so
this is sort of a trope with
you
journalists.
Raise a good thing.
We've seen this before.
Let me tell you something. All right. Let me tell you something right now. You see an older, Esquire GQ journalist going to a porn convention or something. He pitched it.
100.
Okay. It didn't fall into his lap.
No one wanted him to do that.
So, please go. No,
I'm the only one they'll talk to.
Yeah.
I'm the only one.
Yeah. That's a little tea just for you on how the media world works, okay? Beware a guy in his 40s or 50s
the
profiling
fact that it goes this far back, though.
It never ends. The one difference between the guys I'm talking about and Stephen Crane, though, is Stephen Crane's a good writer. Boom. Stephen Crane, like I said, also interested in the street life, writes a book, Maggie, a Girl of the Streets, which talks about a real phenomenon, which is basically how girls wind up in the sex trade due to poverty, due to, being abandoned. And this is a real problem in New York that's booming and growing with time, right? So he happens to be here because he's doing journalism about the sex trade in here. He also loves living with unmarried women, living a bohemian lifestyle.
He loves living with unmarried women.
That's such
an old-timey.
It sounds fucking ridiculous, but it's going to be important later. Okay. And so Charles Becker, this cop who just busts ass all the time on here, right? The surprise is Stephen Crane is there, is famous, and stands up and says, "Why don't you fuck off?" Basically, he says, "I'm married. I'm married to that woman," which is a lie. Which is not true. And then this other woman, Dora Clark, is not a prostitute. And now Becker knows for a fact she is, right? But the one woman actually is married who's with them. So she gets released. Once he susses out that Stephen Crane is not actually married to Dora Clark, he takes her in on solicitation charges.
I have a question. What about him? He's just
Stephen Crane?
Yeah, the guys when they're just arresting the women?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair.
And it should be said, there's no proof actually that they were soliciting those men passing, right? But this is the way it works, right? And this brings us to the twist here of what happens, which is Stephen Crane keeps being annoying. Now, normally...
That's another thing a journalist would do.
That's right. Normally these women get arrested, they get fined, they pay off the cop, and then they go back to work.
Yeah, and the guy's like, I wasn't there.
Right. But Stephen Crane is upsetting the apple cart, and what he's upsetting actually is a whole system. So let's talk about the system.
Yes.
We
love talking about a system on the outfit.
This is our bread and butter.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, they literally called it the system back then.
Oh, wow. There's not even a code word for it.
No,
it is the system.
The system. So what is the system?
Okay.
I mentioned Big Tim Sullivan earlier. Big Tim Sullivan is a big, kind of lovable political boss, and he is typical of the kind of guy running this deal. Big Tim Sullivan is born to Irish immigrants. His mother, in fact, from the same small town in Ireland my grandfather's from, Kenmare, Ireland.
You're related to Big Tim.
His original name was O'Sullivan. So I did ask
Wow.
It's the most common name in that part of Kerry, so who knows? But Kenmare, he's from, I'm just saying, he's from the same town. What he is a high official with Tammany Hall, which, again, probably familiar.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Tammany Hall. Is this a place? Is this an organization? Is it both? What is it exactly?
So there is a literal Tammany Hall near Union Square in Manhattan. But more than that, it speaks to the democratic political machine in New York.
Sort of like the DNC, kind of.
That's right. Only less corrupt. No. You might remember Boss Tweed. You read about him in high school history, like this extravagantly corrupt Tammany Hall leader, but they're very influential. And basically what they do is they provide a spoils system especially for all these new Irish immigrants flooding in, giving them jobs, giving them nice turkey dinners and clam bakes in the summer, and looking out for them generally in pretty rough conditions in exchange for votes, and lots of them.
Got it.
Right? So this is the system. Now, part of that is we have this vast underworld in Manhattan at that time. We have the emergence of the first organized crime in the 5 Points area of Manhattan, which is, and I say first organized crime, first modern organized crime.
Right.
Right? In the form of, there are two gangs, the Paul Kelly gang, the Monk Eastman gang. One is mostly Italian, the other mostly Jewish. These ultimately become kind of the mentors of the guys who birthed Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, Arnold Rothstein. The creme de la creme of the mob, right?
Laying the foundation here.
They really are. And they're a part of the system too. And it all kind of runs on a system of payoffs and bribery and kickbacks and policing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do the police do in this situation? Well, one thing they do is they raid places and extract kickbacks. And it's kind of a tax, right?
Yeah, we've seen this, I want to say, in every episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, right. It talks about it, we talk about it over and over again. And the funny thing is, Becker fits into this like a glove as a very useful guy. So we should talk a little bit about Becker's background. Becker, as you mentioned, as we keep mentioning, he's a tall son of a gun, huh?
A tall drink of water.
But he is what passes for a minority on the NYPD force at that time.
Okay.
He is it's true. He is a DEI hire.
DEI was still legal then,
Right. And also what it meant was like, we'll hire a German. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If a German is a minority on your police force.
Like, we can't actually tell you're a DEI hire.
I mean, I can, because I look at him and I say, this is not an Irish, bullfrog of the sort that I imagine a cop at that time to be. So he's from upstate New York, a very poor farming community, goes to New York following his brother, and buys his way into the police force. This is the way it worked back then.
Okay. What do you mean buys his way in?
I'm glad you asked. If you got a policeman's job was very valuable, and it was competitive to get it. Hundreds of guys would apply for one job, and it would be like, maybe they'd take 200 guys out of 800 applying, right? And so
It's like being a firefighter now.
exactly. You want to take
really
the
hard.
exam, get in. You need a connection. You need political connections, right? Interestingly, Becker gets those connections by working in this strange series of odd jobs, right? Baker's assistant. He's a bouncer at a Bowery beer garden, all these. And you think, well, that's not, what kind of political connections is that going to give you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, saloon keepers, which Big Tim Sullivan originated out of, are hugely important politically because they get the votes out. Everyone knows them. Everyone likes them. They're in positions of influence.
That's true. They're letting you in or not.
Yeah, exactly, right? So Becker saves up and he pays anywhere from $250 to $300 to get backing to get hired. And he does get hired. And he makes himself useful with a quickness, right? And it's really funny to read all these old newspaper pieces because he also loves publicity and courts it.
Of course.
Anytime
That seems like a cop thing.
Celebrity cops are the worst. If you know a cop's name, it's a bad sign.
That's a problem.
Yeah. You should not
He's doing something wrong.
Right.
And he loves the camera.
He does. Yeah. So there's a really funny one from 1902 where a lady is arrested for corruption on the charges of saying, I can get you hired as an NYPD officer, right? And Charles Becker is implicated as having introduced the people to this woman. And then it's really embarrassing. It's like he's going to be tried for this, right? And then the police start saying, no, he was working undercover.
Oh, just kidding. Just kidding.
He was actually helping our case. It's like,
what?
No, he wasn't.
No.
He got
He
caught.
got caught.
And you're saying that now to get him off the hook, right? Because he's making himself useful to these powerful men. And he does this over and over. He keeps getting into trouble and getting out of it through these political connections, right? Amazing headline from the Evening World, September 1902. Policeman wanted duel with pistols. Patrolman Charles Becker, charged with threatening a photographer, put on trial this afternoon. He was further charged with agreeing to fight a duel.
A duel?
According to the witness, Becker drew his club and said he would like to make the photographer's head look like jelly. I told him, said the witness, he wasn't strong enough. Becker said, let's try revolvers then. He's about to have a fucking duel at work.
Okay. He's got to relax.
This guy
He's out of control.
I mean, you want to turn your head into jelly? Look, cops haven't changed much since then,
Yeah.
But as another judge puts it, like later in a case brought by Becker to his court, this judge says 99% of the suspicious person arrests were made with a view to a shakedown by the police, right? And this is with Becker in the court saying, the judge says, instead of arresting men and women for selling crullers, loaves of bread, candy, and other petty things, why don't you go get some of the burglars and murderers who escape your exquisite vigilance?
I wonder why they escape it.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, we all know.
This is it, right? And so this Stephen Crane arrest with Dora as the woman charged is another typical shakedown. And what's atypical about it is Crane saying, go into court, getting her off the hook.
Wow.
Saying, this guy came out of nowhere. She didn't do anything. And by the way, here's some background. Okay. Here's some tea. Okay. I can say
calling it tea back then.
They called it tea back then. And it was spilled on a frequent basis in the newspapers. Here's what happened. This woman, Dora, okay, she was a lady of the night. She was a working gal.
Sure.
And what had happened previously was kind of interesting. She saw an NYPD officer coming out of the shadows and thought he was soliciting her. Okay, weird.
Okay.
Already weird, right? But she also said to him, basically, she thought he was black because it was dark. This is totally bizarre.
I don't know where this is going.
This is so
Dan.
weird. And she says, I don't take black customers, only in a much less nice way. The cop, who was white, was highly offended by this. And this led to a campaign of retaliation against her, where the cops would harass her every chance they got.
Because she thought they were black?
Mm-hmm.
Not because she thought they were solicited.
No, because...
Okay. That says a lot about the time.
Yeah, highly racist force. And obviously this is going to remain important, right?
Right.
An institutionally racist police department. So what they do is every time they see her in the Tenderloin, they're going to arrest her. And Becker saw her that night, said he's going to shadow her, wait till he gets the thinnest pretext upon which to arrest her. Because they're just going to keep harassing her until she fucks off, basically, right? But it didn't work this time. Now, in fact, it's backfiring on Becker.
Not your average John, this guy, Stephen Crane.
That's exactly right. Even worse, Crane, after Dora gets acquitted, stands outside the courthouse steps and says, we're going to get this guy Becker on perjury charges. Say that he lied in court, right? And we get him stripped of his badge, right? Now, this is going to be a police trial put on before the court, before a judge, whose specific job is to do these hearings on police misconduct and make a determination. Becker is actually worried about this, right? Even with all his political connections, because this is a high-profile case. It's very odd.
And how often are cops sort of going to trial for things like this?
They have a surprising amount of them, actually.
Really?
Yes, which I would not have expected either,
Yeah.
right? But part of it is that there is such a demand to be a cop that you can just kind of cycle out of these guys and get rid of them, you know? Get someone else. Now they have the opposite problem. They can't hire new cops, right? So Becker's going to go to court, and his counterattack is very interesting. The first thing he does, he hires a very good criminal defense attorney. When they go to court, he's going to tear Crane apart on the stand, and not through anything factually related to the arrest.
Yeah, like a character assassination.
That's right. You hit it. Hit the nail upon the head.
It's like this guy was...
sorting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how... It's like it undermines his entire...
Yes. That's what they do on the stand with Crane. They rip him apart. They make mention, as I said earlier, living with unmarried women. That's a no-no, right? He may know a person or two who's done opium. This is how fucking old we are here, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And Crane actually comes out of the trial looking worse than Becker.
Whoa.
So this brings us to Becker. How does Becker handle the case? He comes in, and they've enlisted every single one of the police department officers in his precinct who's not on duty to also come in those resplendent brass button uniforms.
Those beautiful uniforms.
I mean, they make an impact.
They do, you know? Suddenly you're in Buckingham Palace or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so it's described in the press as this phalanx. Phalanx? What's the Roman phalanx?
No,
P-H-A-L.
Use a normal word. What are you trying to say?
A bunch of guys come in. Okay?
A bunch of bros.
These
saunter in.
2 or 3 guys come in.
Okay.
And a bunch of them come in their uniforms, and it makes an impression. It's like the thin blue line, right? The brotherhood, the backing.
Disgusting.
Right?
Yeah.
And it goes on into the early morning hours, this trial, and Becker's acquitted. And what's the lesson he learns, right? I'm not going to do this.
I'm the big kahuna.
I'm king shit of Fuck Mountain. And
I'm king shit of Fuck Mountain.
Yeah. And
that's a good one.
This is it, right? So there it goes. He's going to pop up in the newspaper a bunch. But as we're going to see, even as his star continues to climb, you know, he's not going to be able to keep from getting into trouble again.
Of course not.
Let's fast forward again. We're going to recap Becker's career in the interim, but now we're in 1912.
Okay.
I have bad news for you. The Titanic has sunk. I'm sorry. I didn't want to break it to you like this.
You need to stop.
What?
Your brain needs to stop retaining random shit.
April 14th, 1912. The Titanic on its maiden voyage hits an iceberg.
Okay. I'll let you have that one, but the Hercules one was insane.
I think Danny DeVito was in it.
Okay.
But look, the point is, April 1912, Titanic sinks. This is, again, where we're talking about.
Well, it is a glamorous time. Let's just say that.
1912, the Titanic has sunk. A lot of shit is going on. Okay? The point being...
the Titanic has sunk. A lot of shit is going on.
the point
What the fuck happens in the story, Dan?
Can you let me get to it in my own goddamn way? July of 1912, the Titanic having not embarked in the port of New York safely, we have a guy as different from Leo in Titanic as there could be.
Okay.
Starting with his name being Herman Rosenthal, a.k.a. Beansy.
Ah, real sexy name.
This is one of the many Jewish New Yorkers who, along with other Southern European immigrants, have increasingly come into New York, especially since the 1880s.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Herman and the Italian Americans who've also flooded into the Lower East Side more are coming in after the Irish, right? And Germans, right? They're kind of the first wave. They got all the best stuff, right? So what's left for the newer arrivals? In Herman's case, it's gambling, right? Operating casinos in various parts of the city, and none too successfully either, I might say.
Yeah, what's the legality of gambling at this time?
So again, this is part of the system, which is if Times Square and that area, Satan's Circle, the Tenderloin, it's all about the sex trade. The gambling business is also moving in that direction from the Lower East Side. And what I mean when I say the gambling sector, we have everything from plush rug joint casinos in brownstones to basement faro dealing houses. Faro being this popular old card game, mostly found in the Old West, right?
Yeah, so this stereotype, oh, it's the Italian social club, and you go in and then you walk to the back and there's an illegal gambling operation happening.
Very common, in fact. Okay. And Herman Rosenthal, though, so he's one operator among many, right? But something, again, like Stephen Crane, he does something very weird, which is he starts blabbing about this system that everyone knows exists and no one talks about.
What's the first rule of the system? You don't talk about the system.
Like, this is the weird thing about this episode. It's all about guys who Crane, it's different. He's sticking up for someone. Herman, the best way to describe Herman Rosenthal is he's a fucking asshole.
But we see that this isn't just this episode. I feel like there's so many where it's like, can you just chill, bro?
Yeah.
Can you just stop talking?
Can you act like a normal boy for 1 second,
They can't.
Herman?
They can't do it.
Herman is a mentee, an acolyte of Big Tim Sullivan, and he thinks because he's connected to Big Tim Sullivan and Big Tim Sullivan likes him, this is the Tammany Hall boss, he's exempt from paying taxes on his casinos. He's exempt from taking a police raid every now and again. And worst of all, he goes to the Pulitzer Press of Joseph Pulitzer, the yellow journalism king, and starts running his mouth. And in particular, he's running his mouth about an NYPD lieutenant who administers all this big system stuff, all the action in this area. You guessed it, Charles Becker. Because in the years since he bested Stephen Crane, his star has continued to rise. And an absolutely incredible story. He's commended in 1906 for saving a drowning victim in the East River. And this leads incredibly to him later being accused of faking the drowning.
I was going to say, he probably, threw some woman in the water, held her under, and then pulled her out and was like, I saved you.
Right. In this case, it was a drunk, but close enough, Now, here's the weird part. And this is going to be a running theme throughout this program, right? I think Becker genuinely did save the guy. And then what happened was his political enemies went to the guy, and this guy was just a kind of a drunk, a street drunk. A lawyer paid him money, and this is all in the newspapers, to sign an affidavit saying, I faked this with him. Which is true. We don't know, right? But the newspapers tend to paint him in the heroic light in this time, right? Busting down gambling places with axes. One time while doing so, and this is not a joke, another cop hits him with an axe, severs an artery in his hand. That's some stupid shit right there.
Yeah.
That is some Keystone's Cops shit,
How does that just happen?
You got to be fucking working with some assholes.
Yeah.
Which, make of that what you will. But he's on the Broadway squad. The Broadway squad, all the tallest, most handsome police officers help old ladies cross the street.
So it seems like from the time period we started the story into now, there maybe has been a switch in how police officers are viewed?
That's a great point, right? There had been on the cusp of being just bouncers, right?
Right, when we started the
Earlier,
story in the
right?
late 1800s.
And now they've risen in respectability very rapidly, right? And part of that's because New York, this is the Gilded Age of New York. Or was the Gilded Age of New York. It's exploding and it's really large. It becomes a much, much larger city very quickly. And with it, you need a power structure in place to keep all these kind of poor slobs in line, keep the guys on top happy, which I hate to break it to you, I think is kind of how the police still work today, right?
Maybe. But it's interesting because you think, I mean, in my memory, they've always been, I guess, until recently revered, don't speak ill of them, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and this is what's so interesting about all this stuff. And Herman is going to be kind of the climax to this, right? That there is, I got to say, a much harsher view of police aired in the press because this is the progressive era of New York. And there's competing power centers, right? The Democratic Party has Tammany Hall, but there's also the Custom House, which is the equivalent organization for Republicans, right? And there's this push and pull constantly between reformers and upholders of the system. And the reformers are good in their own way, but they're not always as squeaky clean as they may seem. And an interesting thing is, Tammany Hall is very sophisticated in that when they feel the tide is turning, they'll pull back a little. They'll let them have their time and come back later.
Right.
And this is something, interestingly, I'd say the guys today don't understand.
Explain.
All right, take a look at Mamdani. And these guys don't know, all right, let them win.
Yeah, they're going to spend all of this money.
You work, now it's time for the carrot, not the stick.
Yeah. That's so real.
They can't understand that. They're not sophisticated in this way. And I must also say, Tammany Hall actually would provide benefits to people in a way that these fucking guys like Bill Ackman or Andrew Cuomo do not.
No.
You know what I mean? So all that's to say, he's risen through the ranks. He has these political connections and he's working overtime to be useful. A police inspector testifies about NYPD corruption at this investigation into the department. Well, after that happens, Becker makes himself really useful embarrassing this cop over and over again.
Wow.
He raids places in the guy's district to show that he's clueless and protecting rackets, right? And this comes up again and again and again, right? So he's endearing himself to the point that he gets elevated to be a lieutenant with a vice squad, with a strong arm squad. And this is a license to fucking print money, right? Because you go in, shake down everyone.
Yeah, let's talk about, vice.
Yeah.
When you're a vice cop.
So
what that means.
As a corrupt NYPD officer says later in the about his activities in the 80s, the ghetto is the most lucrative place in the city. And what he means by that is that's where all the money is, for these guys. And so Becker organizes this whole payoff system. He's been a bagman for many years, but now it incorporates crime, semi-legal gambling, the sex trade, all into one thing under his control. And he has these mostly Jewish gangsters administering it.
And they're, giving him kickbacks.
He makes so much fucking money. He's able to build his own house in the Bronx, which is basically the country at that time.
Wow.
It should be said, as one of the books puts it, the only goodness in Becker's life seemed to go into his marriage. His third marriage was to
His third one. He finally got it right.
He got it right. The first one died. The second one got divorced, which was uncommon at that time. And then the third was a school teacher who was a very charming lady, actually. He would help grade her tests at night after a long day of, killing.
Okay, this sounds like propaganda, but hey,
listen, people are complicated.
They are. They are.
So yeah, this is it. In between, raiding gambling halls in furniture vans, as they do, as printed in the press and real day. He's taking these payoffs, distributing them amongst the underworld, and an important guy in his organization, Bald Jack Rose, aka Jacob Rosenzweig.
Wow.
Jewish gangster, completely bald.
But he really changed his name there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look,
It's like he wanted to go into Hollywood.
it's a different time. This guy would not have gotten a screen test, I'll tell you that. Because he had alopecia.
Okay.
He was completely hairless.
That's where he gets Bald Jack Rose.
The name fits. It's not one of those ironic names because he's so hairy, you know?
Yeah.
So he's going to be important later, right? On New Year's Eve, 1911, by one account, Becker's at a party and meets Rosenthal. And from there on out, Rosenthal keeps having trouble getting a casino going. He's going to open one in Times Square and eventually solicits Becker as a partner and protector in it. So Becker invests, I think, $1,500. In exchange, he's going to get 20% of the house take.
And you can do that as a cop?
He can fucking do anything he wants. He's going to...
Yeah, why not? I guess you could do that, yeah.
He's on the street cleaner squad. Who's going to stop him? Himself?
Yeah, fair.
So, they're kicking ass. They're doing all this stuff. Becker gets these stockbrokers arrested for, he says, shorting him on a deal. And then it's like such bullshit. He's shaking them down, They get freed because Becker commits perjury and the judge catches him.
Oh
this
my
guy
God.
keeps his job. Like, he just does this over and over again.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
That has not changed, What has changed is he's just partnered with a guy who they call a holler guy.
Ooh.
And I love this phrase.
I love that too.
It's great. Because what do you think a holler guy means?
He's blabbing.
That's it.
He can't shut the fuck up.
Yeah. This is a quotation from the Stanley Cohen book. It was quoted in the Evening Post. This is from another gambler who knows everyone involved. The trouble with Herman is he doesn't know the rules. The rules are you pay your license money, lay low, and play like a gentleman. When you take a hint, take it and close down. It's when fighting among the brotherhood is too noisy that the powerful step in. Great advice.
Ooh, that's a good quote.
It is a good quote. Because Herman, like I said, thinks he's exempt from the rules. He's close to Big Tim Sullivan, same way Becker is. Doesn't have to pay tax to Becker. Doesn't have to give him the full take. Doesn't have to take a raid every once in a while to prove to the bosses, oh, everything's okay, I
kind of love characters like this because you see them again and again, just...
They screw everything up for everyone.
Being a true crime obsessive, it's like, why did this person, someone can have a really tight sort of story. And then there's just one who just can't shut up. It's like, why did you say that?
I mean, this is the weird thing about this, where I resent Rosenthal here more than anyone else in that, excuse me, you're an illegal casino operator. Are you not going into this with eyes wide open on what you're doing?
Yeah.
Like,
you're not squeaky clean.
You're a crook. You have to pay the bribes to operate.
Right.
And he doesn't want to, though.
Okay.
Right? And so what ends up happening is things are going to get worse before they get better. It accelerates a bit. There is, of course, the issue of he starts talking to the press about this, which...
And that you don't do.
Now, that I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have gone that route.
No, doesn't seem... What is his end game? Like, what does he think is going to happen? Like, Becker's going to read the article and then he's going to be like, he doesn't have to pay.
I mean, it's a fascinating question because when he goes into the Hotel Metropole on the night of July 16th, 1912, July 15th, July 16th, 1912, he's just like, like smoking his cigar, reading the paper and all that. Now, he's just come from meeting with the district attorney, who we're going to be talking about more. District attorney's returned from his summer vacation because Herman has just been the source of a front page.
So he's pissed.
Oh, yeah. A front page story has just dropped in the news accusing Becker of administering the system, and the main source on it is Rosenthal, right? So why is this happening, right? Well, again, there are these forces opposed to the system that want to take political power. There is also the role of the journalism, the press baron, Joseph Pulitzer, who loves these stories and views them as a battering ram against his rivals, right? And, there is a progressive movement that wants to get rid of this sleaze and corruption, but not without its own agenda, right? So that night, July 16th, 1912, Herman walks in and he's fucking clueless, where everyone else in the hotel is like, oh, that guy's fucking dead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what he thought was going to happen.
I don't either. I mean, this is what's hard to tell with these guys, where they're just so clueless. I mean, they're just kind of stupid, you know?
Yeah.
And so Herman, interestingly, is confirmed to be on the scene by a couple guys who know him, who go outside, call him outside. He goes outside, and around 2 a.m., 4 guys with handguns blow him away. Fortunately, Herman breaks the path of most of the bullets with his face. Fortunately, no one else was hurt, you know. And he is pronounced dead at the scene. Interestingly, it leads to possibly the first car chase in police history.
Really?
A cop who's there commandeers a car. They give chase, do not succeed in catching them. But that might be the first car chase.
Wow.
35, 40 miles per hour, though.
Okay.
It gets better
It's
over
no
time.
OJ situation.
Although they might have been going slower on the OJ one.
Really?
You know?
The Bronco?
Yeah, the Bronco. You know they can't find the Bronco?
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that odd? Put that in the
How is that?
Peterson
Okay.
Automotive
Well,
Museum.
That's another episode.
That is another episode. Ooh. So what happened here? Well, the police investigation begins. Becker actually does have an alibi for the evening because he's kind of prime suspect number 1. Now, when they go to him, he actually comes into the police station that night and says, and this is actually not a bad line. He says, no one has less of a motive to kill him than me because
it's really would be obvious that it was me.
Yeah, exactly. It's really obvious. I was going to tear him apart in court, which wouldn't have been hard, right?
Yeah, he's a crook.
Yeah, like you're going to take the word of this guy over me. You know, he had been to the boxing match that night with a couple other guys. Went home, fell asleep, was woken up by this news. Okay, but the DA has other ideas. The DA is a guy named Charles Whitman. Whitman is not a Tammany guy. He is not part of the system.
Is he part of the other side?
Sort of, yeah. And Whitman's the son of a reverend from Connecticut. This guy's a stuffed shirt.
Okay.
This guy ain't fun. All
no,
right?
A reverend from Connecticut.
And yeah, this is
lots of fun at parties. This guy.
Well, and this is the other thing. He especially despises the sex trade in the Times Square area. That's his number 1 obsession. He's also highly ambitious.
Okay.
Wants to rise further. And like I said, had returned from a summer vacation to meet with Rosenthal the very day he was killed.
Wow.
Right? Because he views this as a battering ram to clear out the NYPD of all this corruption, which has the secondary result of eliminating his political enemies and making a big name for himself.
For sure. So
right?
He's like, if I get Becker, I mean.
That's right.
It's good for him.
And so it must be said, at a very early stage in the investigation, it's fixed that it's going to be about Becker ordered this, and now we have to fill out the case around it. Right? Which is not fair. And it's odd for me to say that, right? Given this is the most corrupt guy we've ever talked about. And Becker's list of sins is long. I didn't even mention he shot and killed a guy in 1896 and faked it later that he was a burglar. He was not. That he arrested a woman for asking him directions and saying she was drunk. Like, he's a thug, okay?
Yeah. We don't like him.
No. But here's the interesting thing about this. I genuinely do not know if he's guilty of organizing the murder of Herman Rosenthal.
And that is pretty rare. You usually have a hunch.
I usually say one way or the other what I think on this. I really don't know. And it's kind of impossible to know now because the case, we've talked about this in another episode. A prosecutor brings a case that they think is going to convince 12 people to convict. They are not trying to get at the truth necessarily.
No.
It can sometimes...
It's about the jury.
That's it. Sometimes it could be closer to the truth than other times. This is a case where there's not a whole lot linking him directly beyond circumstantial evidence. Yeah. And so how are they going to make the case? Well, the first time they try him, they don't really need to. The judge in the first murder trial of Charles Becker fucking hates Charles Becker going back earlier in his career. I mentioned Becker embarrassing this police inspector who had testified against the NYPD, right?
Right.
Well, one of the guys who was on the police inspector's side in that case has since become a judge.
Oh, God.
And it's Becker's
And he didn't recuse himself?
You know, if Clarence Thomas isn't going to do it, this guy ain't going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is a perfect example, right? Like they put him in front of this judge who's hated this guy's fucking guts for years, get a conviction, but the judge was so biased against him that it gets thrown out on appeal.
Oh.
Right? So Becker, here's another important thing. Becker is insisting he's innocent the whole time and does not cave.
Well, what is he going to do?
Here's the alternative. The alternative is, what if Becker becomes state's witness? What if Becker says to Whitman, I'll tell you everything about how the system works in exchange for not being tried on this? Yeah. He would get a sweetheart deal, you know, and bring down some really big names.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, are watching this case very closely for that reason. For whatever reason, Becker does not. He never talks. Which, gotta hand it to you. You know? Yeah, this guy.
He's a good crook.
He knows a thing or two. So Whitman is facing, though, I have to try him a second time. How do I win? Right? Because now my prestige is really on the line. I've had this embarrassment of having the first conviction.
Yeah, we got to
cost,
do it. We
right?
got to get him.
Alana, what's the number one type of witness we've talked about here? You know? The snitch? The sleaze?
The rat.
The rat.
I'm sorry. I don't even think of them as a witness. They're
something else. Yeah.
They're their own vermin, you know?
That's right. Well, Whitman has his choice of rats.
Of course he does.
He has a rat.
I don't know why I didn't think of rats coming into play.
It's a beauty contest of rats.
It really is. Okay, who are our options?
Well, we have, of course, Bald Jack Rose.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Right? Bald Jack Rose was the gangster that Becker had installed in Rosenthal's casino. Right? Jack Rose is involved in the murder plot.
Okay.
He was involved in getting the hitmen to actually do it, getting the car, all this shit.
Yeah.
Right? There's about 5 to 7 other gangsters involved,
so
including
he's going to say, well, Becker hired me to do that.
Which raises an interesting question. That's exactly what he says. And he says it in really gross terms, to be honest. He says, for instance, Becker told him, Rosenthal ought to be put off this earth. There's a fellow I would like to have croaked, have him murdered, cut his throat, dynamite him. And then he also says, after the murder, he says Becker told him, it was a pleasing sight to me to see that squealing Jew lying there. I'd like to have cut out his tongue and hung it on the Times building. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I don't think Charles Becker said those things.
It's a little dramatic. It's a bit,
as the British say, gilding the lily a little.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Right? But in fact, there's an alternate explanation. What if Jack Rose organized the murder? Right? Jack Rose is a gangster. Rosenthal's blabbing about him. He's up to his neck in it. He could have done it himself.
Yeah.
That's what Becker's saying.
Yeah, this is the problem with rats, is you never know how much of their truth they're telling because they want immunity.
Absolutely. Rose knows he's cooked. They've got him, right? They've got the hitmen. So he might as well squeal, right? Another problem. Whitman arrests him and 2 other gangsters who helped actually organize the hit, and they keep them together in the same part of the jail. Why is that important, do you think?
So they can
get their story straight.
Yeah.
So they all got the same story going. They can reinforce each other. It could be total bullshit. It could be the truth. We'll never know, right?
Wow.
So this is bad news for Becker, who gets a good lawyer, tries the case, but he's suffering from a fatal weakness. And it's that he can't testify on his own behalf at trial. Because if he goes on the stand and says, okay, I was a partner with Herman Rosenthal in this casino. I was shaking down everyone here, blah, 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 blah. What's the problem?
Then his beautiful reputation is he's going to have to admit to all the shit he's doing.
And it's like, okay, so we're going to believe that you did all those things, but you didn't do this thing,
Yeah.
Or even worse, what if on cross-examination they say, well, who were you kicking money up to? What do I have to?
Now the whole system is.
He can't be cross-examined,
Yeah.
right? Even though his life is on the line. And it is on the line. Because I'm sad to say, after the retrial in 1914, he is convicted July 30th, 1915, and sentenced to death. Now, at this time, they were really into sentencing guys to death.
Okay.
They would do it a lot.
Even for killing a crook.
Not directly either,
Yeah.
Now, I should add, the actual hitmen, who have all these colorful names like Dago Frank and Whitey and Louis the Limp, I don't even remember. They get the death penalty too.
Louis the Limp.
It's Louis something else.
Yeah.
Lefty Louis, something like that. It all, they're not even that important, right? They're on opium too.
How frequently would you get the death penalty for arranging a murder?
Well, let me put it this way. I'll answer that by saying there was one figure I saw in one of the books that said in 1 week in July around this time, 9 guys were sentenced to death in 1 week. A lot, so they were giving them out pretty freely. They were giving them out like candy at that time.
Yeah.
And what the death penalty looks like is the electric chair at Sing Sing in Ossining, New York. Last thing to try is Becker's wife goes to the governor and pleads for a pardon or at least clemency. But there is a problem. The governor now, in the time since the trial, is Charles Whitman, the prosecutor.
Oh my God.
That ambitious prosecutor who has ascended to become governor of New York State. And his answer is going to be,
nah.
I don't think so. Not the thing that just made my case. There's one account I read that he had to meet her drunk though, because he was so guilty. Which is pretty big for a preacher's son.
Yeah. Wow.
And so Becker goes to the chair, insisting he's innocent. Electric chairs, not a great way to kill someone.
No.
I think Herman Rosenthal had it better. Becker's later called the biggest man ever sat in that chair.
So it took a lot.
Well, it took 9 minutes.
Ugh.
His head caught on fire partially. The strap on his chest broke. He was so strong, straining against it. Pretty bad. And we still don't know to this day really whether he was guilty or not.
Wow.
Now, Bald Jack Rose became an influencer off of this.
No.
Starts touring around Christian revivals.
An old-timey influencer.
Yes.
What did that look like then?
He would go to these like Christian revival tent meetings and say, oh, I was up to my neck in sin.
Oh, God.
And blah, 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 blah. And it's like the hustle never ends, right?
Mm.
And there's a nominal thought that, well, at least there's some good here in terms of the police getting cleaned up, And they did fucking execute a NYPD lieutenant. That's quite a black eye for a department.
Yeah.
Right? So
on the other hand, if he revealed the system,
would have been way more.
Not to be a conspiracy theorist here, but I feel like a lot of people probably wanted him to die.
Well, here's another thing, right? Like the other thing is maybe, and I'm just speculating here, maybe they say to Becker, your wife will be taken care of no matter what, if you stay quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you squeal, your life's worthless anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to kill you,
It's not looking good for him.
It's not. So, maybe that was part of his calculations. We'll never know. Whether or not Becker was guilty of this, like I said, I genuinely don't know. And that's kind of interesting because I usually have one inkling or another. Could it have been he implied that Rosenthal should go, said get him out of the city, didn't expect them to kill him, or that he did imply that, thinking they're going to take care of it and there won't be my fingerprints on it? We don't know. They're kind of equally likely to me.
Right.
But what's interesting is, after this whole sordid mess is over, 100 years into the future, even well after Hercules has come out.
Wow.
we are still going through it today with a mayor who rose through the ranks of the NYPD to become an NYPD captain, politically connected to the Brooklyn Democratic machine, become mayor, become one of the most corrupt mayors in New York history, get a federal investigation thrown out through a corrupt deal with President Trump. And we have a reform candidate, Zoran Mamdani, who, is going to have to negotiate some pretty tough stuff with the police. He's going through that, having to moderate some of the things he said about the police, because the police now as then is a tough institution to deal with.
Do they have that much power in all cities, or is it particularly a New York thing?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a big difference between now and when Becker was in operation is I think the police were less powerful back then.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, one went to the electric chair. That's not happening.
Now it's like a municipal government is like a police department with some libraries attached. And that's it, Like that's what it is. So,
and they're shutting the libraries down.
And those
one
are
by one.
Not long for this world either, right? So now it's like, as with so many things in this society, we can't police ourselves. We can't reform ourselves. The most modest reforms to the police department are not going to be accepted anymore. Wall Street guys are not going to accept anything. The polar opposite of the Tammany guys, who I thought were very sophisticated in terms of, we'll take our lumps and we'll come back in a little bit, We'll nurse our wounds and be out of power for a little bit with the idea of living to fight another day. Now it's just, I don't want anything bad to happen to me ever, and I'm powerful enough to make sure it doesn't,
Wow. Heartwarming,
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe it was better then.
It was way more awesome. No, it wasn't.
No.
There's never been a good time.
That's the lesson.
And
it's always been bad.
Maybe that's why Big Tim Sullivan was so happy. He's an Irish guy, so he just understands nothing will ever be good. So you might as well
fun hell.
Have fun. Fun hell. That's it. Bye.
Bye. For more fun hell, come back next week for another episode of The Outfit. What do you got for us, Dan?
More fun and more hell.